Right?
All of this.
Hello. Hi. Welcome to another episode of BARBELL Junction.
Lord.
My name is... Oh, you distract me, man.
I'm sorry.
My name is Azmi, your host. And with me today is Heather. Well, do you prefer Heather or Ying?
Heather.
Heather.
Yeah,
okay.
everything's fine.
But these guys are always calling you Ying.
Yeah, because, I mean, they can call me anything they want, I guess.
Yeah. And also Dr. Arvin.
Hey guys.
Dr. Arvin, welcome back.
Thanks, man.
Before we start, basically today we're going to talk about depression among athletes.
Yes.
Yes. And before we start, please go to our YouTube channel, subscribe to it. Oh damn, that's loud. Be sure to leave your comments. This is the first time that we're shooting with multiple camera angles, so let us know in the comments what you think. And also we're available in Spotify, so check us out there as well.
You're listening to Barbell Junction, Malaysia's first strength and fitness podcast, brought to you by Zealfit Malaysia, the distributor of Eleco strength equipment.
And hi everyone, hi, welcome Heather and also Dr. Arvin.
Hey, thanks,
Hey.
man.
So, well, I just want to preface this episode with the fact that last week we had a very heartbreaking news about a Sarawakian athlete, which who actually committed suicide. As I understand it, the at least in the article that you forwarded to me, was that he was suffering from depression.
That's what it was saying.
Yeah.
I mean, obviously, we did not get the real, probably what happened actually.
Yeah.
So, but from what was described,
Yeah.
it sounded like depression.
Right.
And so yeah.
Yeah. And actually, this episode, it's just a coincidence that we happened to chance upon this sad incident. Actually, I approached you before and asking you whether you actually can talk about depression, and you said yes. The reason it came about for me is that when I've interviewed a couple of powerlifters, especially, and I think about 2 or 3 actually suffered, or at least they think. I mean, I'm sure they haven't went to a doctor and get themselves diagnosed, but they feel that they were under depression, right? So that's why I thought that this is a subject that I think should be talked about, and
definitely.
And hopefully that in this episode we get to unpack all the issues with depression and what is depression and things like that. But I suppose that in order for us to kickstart the discussion, maybe you can explain to us what is depression.
All right. Disclaimer: I'm actually not a psychiatrist. Okay, so basically, whatever I'm saying is actually not what I made up. Okay, it's actually based on criteria that are out there that we normally use to diagnose anyone with such mental health issues. Okay, so for professional help, definitely you have to see a psychiatrist.
Right.
Okay, or at least a sports psychologist.
Okay.
All right. So basically, when we're talking about depression, the first thing is you have to differentiate that from sadness. You know, every one of us go through sadness. Sadness is actually a point of grief, and it's normally something has happened. I mean, there's a death in the family or so on.
Right.
There's a temporary feeling of sadness, and as we go, we normally will be able to cope with it. Depression, on the other end, is far more on the other end of the spectrum, when sadness has gone too far. Okay, so if you actually look at the DSM criteria, which is the Diagnostic Statistical Manual and Statistical Manual for Mental Health, and they actually have criteria that you have to meet. So I'm just going to read it out, okay?
Right.
So you have to have at least 5 of the following symptoms, okay, which has to be present in duration of 2 weeks.
Okay.
Okay, that means if you're just sad for 3 days, you don't have depression.
Okay.
Unlikely. Okay, but when it's prolonged more than 2 weeks, okay, and at least one of the symptoms has to be actually a feeling of diminished interest or pleasure. That means whatever you used to like, you currently just find it boring, or you dislike it anymore. Okay, or you're depressed all the time. You feel sad almost all the time.
Right.
You have a lot more bad days than good days.
Okay.
Okay, so one of the first things that you have to have is a depressed mood. Okay, one of the criteria. The other one of the 2 main criteria is depressed mood or a diminished interest or pleasure.
Okay.
Okay, so you have to have one of those 2 before you can even diagnose it. Next, you can actually have a significant weight change, either weight gain or weight loss.
Oh, okay.
Okay, sometimes some people will overeat, and some people just don't eat at all.
Yeah.
All right.
Okay, there's both ends of the spectrum. Then you have sleep disturbances. So some people will not get any sleep, or some people all they want to do is just sleep.
Okay.
Okay, so both ends of the spectrum is a problem. And then you will have psychomotor agitations or retardation. Basically, these people can get irritated at almost anything.
Okay.
Okay, and then you'll have fatigue or loss of energy. That means they will look tired or feel tired almost all the day. Right? And feeling worthless. This is one of the most, I guess, jarring things that you'll see. They will always feel worthless, hopeless, helpless. Okay, and obviously diminished ability to think, concentrate. You give them a task, they will not be able to do it. You sometimes see in your colleagues, you give them a job, they seem to look like they're doing it, but they're not.
Right.
Something is really running in their head. Okay, and last but not least, which is almost the end of the spectrum, is when you have recurrent thoughts of death.
This is suicidal thoughts.
Suicidal thoughts, suicidal intentions. Okay, then obviously the suicidal attempt.
Right.
Okay, and obviously this is depression, but the moment you have another criteria that drops into it, it actually changes the psychosis. When you start having hallucination.
What?
You have some depressed people,
Right.
will start having hallucination, like someone telling you, okay, now please go and kill yourself,
Right.
or go and do this yourself, stab yourself with a knife.
I see.
Yeah.
The voices in the head.
And end your life now. So they have depression, but when they have these hallucinations, they've gone to psychosis.
Okay.
Okay, so obviously, like if you see, have you heard of postpartum depression?
Yeah.
Yes.
Okay, so
Yeah.
postpartum depression is when you're just sad all the time. Okay, there's blues, there's depression, then there's postpartum psychosis, where there's things telling you your child is actually the devil.
Okay.
So that's the end of the spectrum.
Right.
So a lot of people will have depression. So you just have to watch out that it's not gone to psychosis.
I mean, if somebody who were to have this signs or symptoms, right, would they be self-aware?
Okay, that's depending on level of insight. Okay, most of us have a lot of insight. I mean, it means you feel sad most of the days. Okay, and they will actually feel that something is not right. But once, Heather probably can talk about this later on.
Right.
I feel that there's probably a period when you actually have the insight something's not going right, and then it goes to a point where it starts taking over, and it becomes you.
Okay.
You don't really have an insight of that it's happening. It just feels like it's you already.
Right. But at that point of time, it is very difficult for that person to rein themselves back, right? Because they feel that that's them.
Correct.
At the particular moment.
Correct. So when they have all these feelings that I'm talking about, these criteria that they're talking about, it's not like it for us who's looking from a third person, you probably can see it,
Yeah.
but for them, that's them.
So I guess the most the people surrounding this person are actually those people who are really important in determining or actually calling out that this person has depression, because they themselves are not aware or could not be aware that they have depression, right?
Yeah, to a certain extent. What do you think, Heather?
It really depends, because like there are people around you, like if like for my instances, like there are people around me that doesn't really feel like, you know, depression is a thing that you're supposed to talk about, because it's such a taboo in like our society. And like they would feel like you're just being sad, or it's all in your head, and you can't really, like, there are times where I struggle to explain how I actually feel, you know, like it's like I can't just say like, okay, for them it's easier for me to explain like I'm feeling down, you know, I need someone to be around me, I need someone to talk to, and like I just don't feel like I'm set out to do whatever mediocre task, you know, like drinking water, taking care of myself. It's not easy for me to do that on really, really bad days. And when I talk to them and they're just like, oh, you just don't have to think about it. And yeah, that works. But for people like us, it's hard. It's very, very hard for us to not think about it. The more you don't think about it, the more you think about it, actually.
Right. Actually, one of my family members suffers from depression. Of course, from a Muslim perspective, you bring God into the discussion and things like that, right? But one thing that I don't understand, and hopefully both of you can help me understand, also the viewers and listeners out there, is that how does it actually feel? Are you still in control of your own emotions when you're in a state of depression? Like when you said said like sometimes like even drinking water is difficult, right? So can you actually? Why couldn't you actually get over that barrier?
Before I explain that, I was actually diagnosed back in 2017.
Right.
Yeah, so I was put on antidepressants, and after that I stopped it. So it is just a feeling of you don't want to live anymore. Like, there is no point for you to drink water, there's no point for you to shower, there's no point for you to do anything at all in life.
Okay.
Yeah, that's just how I felt back then, Even now, although it is like I have the power to cope with depression, like I can't really get rid of it at all. There's no way.
True?
Yeah.
To a certain extent, you have to understand that, like what I was saying, depression kind of takes over. To put it in simple ways, depression is like a smoking habit. Okay, you can quit it for a while, but something might trigger and you might just take it back all over again.
Yeah.
So I feel like the people that I deal with, so like what Heather's dealing with is not just straightforward athletic related depression. She has other issues. Okay, so and all of those combined, she has different incidents in her life that can be triggering to her feeling. It can be, it can be anything that may trigger. So like for a person in depression, whatever that triggers that particular depression or that episode will, and it can be anything. It can be just missing a lift, and if you're a person who missed a lift during, say, a powerlifting meet, and that was the meet you were about to win,
right,
and you missed it, and that miss will sometimes haunt you, and that haunting feeling will sometimes go on for a while, and it can be just lifting again in the gym,
right,
and then it all comes back, that kind of thing. So obviously what we're trying to do is manage depression,
right?
Okay, curing depression is I guess it's possible, but it's not the easiest thing to do. I mean, it's easier said than done, because I've never dealt with depression, because I personally have not been in that shoes,
right?
Okay, but I've seen people who have had it.
Right.
I've seen people who have had it, and the thing is, they'll be okay after that session. They spoke to me, but then a couple of days later, I get another sad message.
Right.
So and you know that it's happening every time. So like say this person has got an injury, okay, and they are sidelined for 9 months, and that say they were the ace of the team,
right?
So when you're sidelined for 9 months, that's a very, very long period. That can feel
for an athlete, right?
Yeah, for an athlete, that's a lot of time taken off game.
Yep.
And 4 months down the line, your coach comes and tells you, why aren't you? Are you ready to play again? And there are people who don't really understand what is going on, and that will trigger a feeling of letting people down and so on.
Right.
And that triggers the
So
entire
compounds
they're kind of feeling okay already after they spoke to me. I told them this is the process. It's gonna take a while. You're gonna get through it. We will do it together. And they're like, fine, okay, I'm ready to do this. Then they go back to where they were from and their coaching elements. And then the coach says, are you ready to play again? When are you going to be ready to play? What did the doctor tell you? And everything just comes back again. And so that sometimes that happens.
Right.
Yeah. Actually, like recently, I did pop my shoulder in a playground combined event, and
Wait, like dislocated your shoulder?
it's just a mild dislocation.
Subluxation.
Subluxation. Yeah.
Belum keluar, almost nak keluar.
Almost keluar. Yeah. So I couldn't bench, I couldn't do overhead presses, I couldn't do pull-ups, and a lot of things that I couldn't do. And during that time, I was actually preparing to compete in one of the powerlifting meet.
The MPA?
APA.
Yeah. APA apa?
APA. Yeah, I was supposed to go for that because that was like pretty much a big meet, you know. Yeah, because everyone around the world, in Asia.
At least in this region,
Yeah. So they're
I wanted to compete too, but
He's just
Yeah.
not ready yet.
Yeah.
Not ready yet. Probably in a few 10 years time.
Yeah. So I was supposed to prep for that, but seeing as how I couldn't do any like small or major shoulder movements, and I was really sad for like really like I was disappointed in myself, and I would tear up out of nowhere.
Mhm.
Like I couldn't cry, but it was just tearing up because I really wanted to compete.
Right.
Like I really wanted to go for it.
But is that because there's a your expectations of yourself is you set yourself such a high standard, right? Because you want to go for APA, right? And then suddenly that's not achievable anymore, or at least it's being derailed somehow by your injury. And do you think that is actually the reason why you felt that kind of sadness?
Yeah, I mean because
Wait, sorry, let me just backtrack a bit. My point of view is this, like, let's say if somebody like me, I don't have such lofty goals. My goals are just things that I know I can reach.
yeah.
So if I don't get it, I'm not too sad about it. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
But if I say like, look, if I'm taking an exam, for example, I know I can get 95 out of 100, for example, right? And suddenly I got 94,
Yeah.
and I'd be like beating myself up, Is it that kind of...
No. It wasn't like me beating myself up because I've been preparing for that meet like 4 months. Like right after June's meet, MPA in June.
Yep.
Yeah, so I've been preparing myself to get into APA, but then like when things doesn't I get very how to say, like
Frustrated?
Yeah, frustrated. Like because I've been waiting for months and months
Yeah.
to get to that day, but just nice I have a subluxed shoulder and I couldn't compete for that. And again, like because powerlifting has always been my outlet for depression, and like whenever I feel stressed out or sad or whatever, I just go to the gym and just do something, you know. And it's been something that really keeps my like whatever it is together, so that I don't lose it. Yeah. And like suddenly someone tell me, oh, you can't compete for this, because of your shoulder, and I feel like I lost that outlet. But at the same time, I can still train for like next year's meet or whatnot, but it's just something that was uncalled for. I wasn't prepared for that. So it feels like something that you're looking forward to, because like at this point, having to deal with mental illness, like I have to set small goals, you have to have something to look forward to. If you lose that, and that's it, like I wouldn't be sitting here right now,
Just to put things in context, are you able to share how you got depressed?
Yeah, sure. Yeah. Actually, I felt it when I was really young because my dad was very abusive. And my mom back then, I guess she was also trying to deal with my dad. Like, whatever he's doing to her and me, it was... she has her own way of coping it, but it ended up taking it out on me.
Okay.
Yeah. And my dad was basically... I don't know if it is probably a horrible person, and he has been causing me a lot of self-esteem issue, confidence issues since I was young. Like so growing up, like actually the first time that I actually attempted suicide was when I was, I think, 13. It was during high school, and because of my self-esteem issue, because I wasn't allowed to go out and hang out because my dad and my mom was like super overprotective.
Okay.
And like I struggled to make friends. I struggled to, like cope with the feeling of not having friends, because I see everyone around me, they have social life, they have such a good childhood. Their parents would come in and just love them so much, and like I feel overwhelmed because I don't know what that feels like, and I want it, and at one point, because I'm the only child, I don't have any siblings, so at one point I felt like I was completely alone, and it was hard. Yeah, and the second time of trying, where I attempted it was I think around when I was 17. Yeah, it's like a few years ago. That was when also my eczema started, getting like breaking out, and that was also the time where I went to the psychiatrist. So she diagnosed me, and she gave me medications, and
Only when you were 17.
Yes.
So that means you were suffering depression since for what, 4 or 5 years?
Since
13,
I guess
right? You mentioned 13 the first time.
13 was the first time where I attempted suicide, but
Oh my
I felt
God.
it much longer. But also because like I wasn't able to, ask for the opportunity to go to a psychiatrist, because it was really hard for me to tell my parents, like, I mean, I can tell them, but
They're just
them-
being dismissive.
yeah, like them bringing me to a psychiatrist is another thing, Like it wasn't until back then my ex like actually found out that I was trying to hurt myself, trying to end my own life. That's when he called my mom and just said like, hey, you need to bring her to the psychiatrist now, which I really thank him for, making my mom to bring me there. And yeah, so when we got there, the psychiatrist, I was just, she asked me what's wrong. She had my mom wait outside, so she asked me like to open up, and I didn't say anything. All I did was I just cried and cried and cried, because I felt so relieved that finally someone was there to help me. Yeah.
I also wanted to ask you that, like, the feeling that you had over the years, right? Was it also because that you couldn't express yourself because you were so confined or so constricted by your parents? You said that you have your friends, you want what your friends had, right? And because of all the constriction, you couldn't express yourself, and that made you sad and depressed.
Yeah. And also a lot of other factors, like, coming home from classes and then you have your parents shouting at each
Okay,
other,
yeah.
hitting each other and things like that. And it's like a daily thing for me. And when the worst part is when they lash out on me, and that's when it starts to get really overwhelming. So I had that since like I think after 18, then it stopped, because like I started gradually like removing myself
From
from
the
that
situation.
environment.
Yep.
Yeah. And then that's when I started having people around me that I can express my my feelings to.
Right.
And yeah, so since then I try to learn how to cope with whatever I'm feeling.
Right.
And it is it's not easy. Yeah. It's not easy.
So if you see in this situation that in a lot of cases of depression, clinical depression, or what we call as major depressive disorder, there's always a backstory.
Yeah.
It doesn't just pop out of nowhere.
Right.
If you watch Joker, okay,
I would want to watch Joker.
okay,
Yeah.
if it's something like that. Okay, you see the end product, but you have never heard of the rest of the story yet.
Yeah.
So there's always a backstory to everything that happens.
Right.
Most of the cases of depression, psychosis, people who go around killing people, there's always a backstory. Something that happened, something that pushed them to that limit. And it could be something that's very subtle. Even in kids who bedwet. Okay, sometimes we find out it's because the parents are fighting.
Oh.
Yeah.
So bedwetting in a kid is a sign of something is not going right.
Huh.
Yeah, it's not normal.
Doc, I have a question. So actually this is something that I personally experienced. So what do you think about nightmares, especially in people who are having depression? Because I noticed that I have it very frequently, and I would stop myself from sleeping because it was that bad. I actually had it last night,
I see.
and I hear noises in my ear, and I felt the pressure on my head and my chest, and like
This is when you're sleeping.
yeah, last night. It happened last night. Yeah. So I had a small pillow on my eyes, like just covering it so that the light doesn't like from the window or whatever. Yeah. So I fell asleep, like, but I'm aware of my environment. Like I know that I'm in my room. I know where everything is, and I felt pressure on the pillow, and then one on my shoulder, on my chest, and I just felt like my whole body just sink into the bed. And then like I'm not sure what it was, but like I heard like giggling noises on my left ear, and my first intention was like just to wake up, you know. I start screaming, I start shouting for my mom, but I was dreaming. Like when I when I woke up, like I was sweating, and like that was the second nightmare of last night. Like I actually had there's another one before, but I went back to sleep again, and it happened again. And I read one of the, if I'm not mistaken, was a study that said that people who are stressed out are more prone to having nightmares or things like that. And
Yeah, it is.
I'm sure.
It's actually it's actually pretty common to have nightmares or something that depicts a situation you're feeling or how you're feeling, come in the form of a dream. It can be nothing, but it can be very horrifying at the same time.
Right.
Okay, so again, sometimes, if I'm not mistaken, it's called hypnagogic or hypnopompic. Just before you sleep, sometimes you can have hallucinations, especially when you're anticipating something, you know. But it is not uncommon that someone who has a state of depression or some sort of depressive thought that's going on, or depressive mood, for it to play itself in a nightmare, in the form of a nightmare. I mean, if you sit down and to diagnose and study what the nightmare actually means, probably it means something. But I'm not the pro at that.
Yeah.
But there are people who actually can, based on what you are actually thinking, and if it happens all very frequently, it could be something that's related to what's happening around you, and it's representation of what's happening.
Yeah, it's a manifestation of what's your subconscious.
Yeah, sometimes some people say that the feeling of falling off a cliff could be
Right.
just your blanket falling off.
Yeah.
That your blanket is actually falling off, but what comes in your head is you're falling off the cliff.
Right.
That's that kind of
Everybody
thing.
has that, right?
Yeah. Or a misstep kind of feeling.
Yeah.
Okay, so there are relation to it, you know. So yeah, to answer your question, yeah, probably there is probably you have a higher risk of getting bad dreams compared to better ones.
Right.
You know, good, flowery unicorn dreams.
So
You know.
Yeah.
is there any like suggestion that you would have to
From
allocate?
my professional view, I probably should not dish out any advice because I don't really know what to do with it. But probably a psychiatrist might be able to understand what is actually happening more than I will.
Yeah.
You know.
Yeah.
So that being said, what I'm coming to is most athletes probably might not have Heather's backstory, but it goes to prove that no one is actually immune to depression.
Right.
Yeah, no one is. Athletes, non-athletes, every one of it. Actually, if you see the studies that have been done, they actually did a study with collegiate athletes, Division 1 athletes in America. You're talking about anywhere between 15 to 21% of athletes actually have clinical depression. That's just one of the diagnoses. I've not even gone to anxiety and so on.
Okay, let's just stop there for a while, and we have to take a break.
All right.
We'll be right back after this. And we're back. What's the name of the show? BARBELL Junction. With me is Heather and also Dr. Arvin. Okay. All right. Let's get into more towards the depression among athletes.
Yeah. Okay. So just as I was saying, athletes are not impenetrable. They are their risk of getting depression is as good as anybody else. Okay. So if you actually see most of the athletes, the problem with them is once they become big, okay, there is an expectation. You know, there's an expectation of you when you go into competitions, when you go into training. Okay, you're not talking about just an individual sport. You're talking about team sports as well. You're expected to perform week in, week out. Okay, and if you don't, you might get axed. Like what's happening to Ozil and Arsenal. Okay, if you see what happened in Mesut Ozil, he's been axed. He's literally not in the team.
Yeah.
So what happens to a person who was such a big name in the sport and suddenly you get axed and you're just sitting on the bench?
Right.
You're not even on the bench. You're actually sitting with
in the crowd.
in the crowd.
Yeah.
Okay, so that actually takes a real big hit on the athlete. So on the other hand, you have the athletes who get injured. Okay, as I was saying just now. So there are athletes who get injured and you get something like an ACL injury. If you're a rugby player and you get an ACL injury, or a football player gets ACL injury, you're talking about anywhere between 9 months to a year of being sidelined.
Yeah.
Okay, so what happens is when you're an athlete, your entire identity is you as a sportsman or a sportswoman.
Yep.
You know, so when you're a sportsman or a sportswoman and your entire life revolves around that, when you get injured, okay, that identity is taken off or it's put on the back burner,
Right.
okay, and you become like everybody else, and you have to endure operations, pain, rehabilitation, and rehabilitation can be very, very difficult on them.
Yeah.
Okay, being from the I've actually personally taken care of people through the entire 9 months of a rehab. Okay, so I've seen them from the point they were operated to the point when I told them you're fit to go back to play.
Right.
And so it was a journey. It was a very big learning journey for me.
Okay.
Not obviously the rehabilitation part wasn't half as hard. Okay, because I could see that the athlete was progressing, and the athlete actually has the mental capacity to deal and endure with the pain and what's required to get to the end. But the problem is the breakthrough problems that come when you go back to the center where she was training. Obviously you have your team members, your coach expecting you to come back, and they're like questions like, when are you coming back? Why aren't you being able to run? Those kind of things. And I'm not talking about this now. Obviously if you ask that first month of your injury, something's wrong with them lah. I'm talking about 6 months down the line. She's already starting to show signs that she's improving.
Okay.
And I can see it. But sometimes you have to trust the process.
Yeah.
You know, it appears that the person can run, but appears as a person can run plus a person running and getting tackled is two different stories. Okay, so running in one line and running side to side is a very different thing. So all of those, just because a person can run straight doesn't mean the person is fit to run side to side already. You know, so that it's a process. So we as physicians understand that. But the thing is, the people who are looking from the outside, the teammates don't understand because they've not gone through that.
Right.
You have not gone through an ACL injury. And because of that, the feeling of letting people down, that's one of the things the athlete told me. I feel like I'm letting people down. And they break down because of that. And they know who they were. And they want themselves to go back to that level.
Right.
And they're on the way there.
Yeah.
They're not just quite there yet. But because they have so much expectation of themselves and who they were, it actually leads to initially sadness. And obviously if that progresses long enough, 9 months is long, all you need is 2 weeks to be depressed.
Right.
Yeah.
You know?
But can you stop it within those 2 weeks?
That's when okay, see, if you see an entire team, okay, in the aspects of Malaysia, it's not really great. You don't really have a sports psychologist. All you have is your coach.
Okay.
Your coach plays all the roles. Okay, and if your coach doesn't do that job well, then you're on your own.
Okay.
Okay, you're training on your own because the rest of the team are doing tactical work. You are just doing some drills on the side alone.
Yep.
Number one, you're alone. Okay, you have a coach come and peep from time to time whether you're doing okay. That's about it. But there's no one there to give you emotional support. And actually, if you see statistics, it is more apparent amongst female athletes.
Right.
Okay, depression risk between males and females is about the same, but somehow females are a bit more susceptible.
Is it because they're more emotional?
Yeah,
or?
probably. They're probably more emotionally intact.
Right.
So they feel things more compared to a male. But that doesn't mean a male doesn't get it.
Right.
Males do get it as well. So the problem is you're training alone, you're injured, you're not doing as well as you were, and there's no emotional support. There's no one coming to you and telling you it's going to be okay, you're going to do well, we see progress in you, and so on and so forth. So that emotional support doesn't exist. Or if at all, very minimal. 9 months is long. So obviously, one of the ways I managed to help this athlete was I personally was in touch. Though I don't see the athlete as frequent in the clinic. Initially, we was quite frequent every weekly or 2 weekly. Then it gets to a monthly basis, but anything can happen in a month.
Right.
So if I told the athlete, if at all you feel that you need someone to talk to, you always can talk to me. And I always try to offer emotional support and explain that this is the process. Don't worry about it. I see a lot of progress. Then I always use like stats and figures and tell you like, see, this is exactly how it looks like. Then show videos of how you were when you started, how you are now, and those kind of things. So I always kind of what's it called? Mengukuhkan, right?
Mengukuhkan.
Measure.
Mengukuhkan. Reinforce.
Yes, I reinforce.
My English so good.
I can't be a man.
Yeah. I always try to reinforce that reassurance.
Yeah.
or that perception that that athlete is going to do well, and I see it coming. You just have to be a bit patient. So that is one of the biggest thing. Injuries is of all there are about 6 things that cause an athlete to go into depression. Injury is one of them. You know, then obviously there's the fear of failure. The fear of failure is very apparent, especially if you're a top end athlete. It's like what you explaining just now, you know, like us. You haven't competed yet. You don't really make the lift. No one really cares. You know, I'll do better next time. But you have already, like Haris, say he's on the top.
Right.
He's where he is already.
Yeah.
And if he missed the lift that he's supposed to do, that will take a big hit on him.
Yeah, you know, the other day, there was this guy who trains under Haris, and he missed a deadlift, right? And he was so upset, you know. Right, I guess this is what you were trying to allude to, right? And for me, my perspective, if I miss a lift, like, who cares? You know,
so it's not the same.
It was like raw emotion.
Yes, it's raw emotion. And obviously, I mean, you don't diagnose that as depression.
Of course.
But it always can be a trigger.
Yeah.
You know? So the fear of failure is one thing, you know, meeting the expectations. Sometimes they over expect things.
Yes.
Some athletes actually put so much of expectations on them. You know, they come to the gym and they're like, okay, I've done 180 for 3 reps. On the day, I'm going to single rep, shouldn't be a problem.
Yeah.
Yep.
And they miss that single rep.
Yeah.
And that will take a big hit.
Yeah.
So because they can't do what they did in training.
Right.
Because the entire environment is different, the bar is different, the weights are different, the people around you are different. People are
the
shouting.
smallest things, man.
Yeah, so a lot of things go into the emotions
Right.
of an athlete. So
Right.
that's one of the fear of failure.
Yeah.
And on the other hand, you have fear of victory.
Huh? You
A lot of
don't-
people don't realize the fear of success is a big deal. Okay, so like if you have heard of, you know who Michael Phelps is, right?
Yeah, the swimmer.
Michael Phelps. So Michael
The
Phelps,
runner.
Bro.
Yeah, sorry Phelps if you're
Yeah.
watching this. We will
Sorry,
beat him up
yeah.
later. So Phelps, when he won the Olympics, okay, and he was caught smoking a bong,
Yeah.
okay, he smoked a bong,
Right.
but because it's Phelps, the media is all over him.
Yeah.
And the moment you're there, so you're the person who's successful, but when you're successful, you become a role model. You become something everybody watches out for. You are the person everybody looks out to. And when you do something like that, which is human, all of us do.
Right.
Okay, all of us have our own weaknesses. Okay, but it is unacceptable when you're an athlete.
Right.
And that actually puts a lot of pressure on you. That means you can't be imperfect.
Right. It seems to me, from what we've already talked about, it's an issue of expectations, right?
A lot.
Yourself, your families and friends, society, and it's because they're not meeting these expectations. Therefore, you know.
So like in the case of Heather,
Right.
if you don't mind me saying Heather,
Yeah.
Heather has eczema.
Right.
Okay, and sometimes it can hurt. She has told me
Yes,
before.
yes,
It can
yes.
really hurt. Okay, so she probably could have done the lift on any other day,
Yeah.
Right.
but that day that pain was just excruciating. That could be a trigger.
Right.
You know, something happened, something ripped, the skin got ripped or something like that, and that pain can be very, very demoralizing.
Right.
And that whatever expectation you came with just comes crumbling down.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You know, and that takes a big hit. So you have to understand that injury is just one thing. The fear of failure, the fear of success. Transitions. You have to understand, if you're a person who say you're playing for some small school, then the major league school calls you to go, and you have to shift your entire life there. You know, your friends, your family, whatever that was familiar to you,
Right.
all are gone. Your teammates, all gone.
Yeah.
Okay, you come to a new environment which is suddenly hostile, budak baru.
Yeah.
Okay, who are you?
Right.
Okay, and you come and you have to cope, and you seriously have to perform. Because you were picked up as someone who performed, and you go to an entire environment. If you see what happened to Nicolas Pepe, who plays for Arsenal, he was fantastic in the French league.
Right.
But when he came to Premier League, suddenly like, who are you? Why did you cost 70 million? So that when you are that person in that league and suddenly you have to transition, your whole life moves to another place. Entire environment is different, not the same team, and that can set you back.
Right.
Because they start hitting you from the point you come in.
Yeah.
No one is going to come and say, oh, budak baru come, give you a
Yeah.
cup of tea,
Yeah,
let's
yeah.
give you a month to settle down. No, that doesn't
They're
happen.
not united, right?
Yeah.
United will give you time.
Let's not go there. so I'm taking that as a perception, but it happens everywhere.
Yeah.
You know, it happens everywhere. So that transition, the change environment, social factors, everything changes.
Right.
So that itself can actually be a starting point.
Right.
And if it doesn't resolve, it doesn't get better, you don't perform, then it starts spiraling, starts snowballing, and then you get stuck into a position where you can't get out from.
Yeah.
You know? So obviously there are ways to break that, okay? But if it does not happen, then this is what happens. It snowballs to a bigger issue.
Yeah. Like Heather, for you, you mentioned that powerlifting is a coping mechanism, right? Can you talk through us how powerlifting has helped you in managing your depression?
I guess it's more of like anger outlet because like for powerlifting you have to lift heavy, you know, you have to, I mean it's subjective, but for your terms it has to be, you know, you have to get that 1 rep max or 3 rep max or whatever. Yeah, so that is you need to be focused, you need to be passionate about having to get that, you know. If you're not determined,
when you're powerlifting, you go into this zone.
That zone,
that bubble you have. So someone who has that kind of feelings, when you go into this, that is your zone.
So do you guys think that it's actually one of the ways, one of the coping mechanism is for you to have some form of goal, something that you can reach and you know, feel good about yourself?
Like I said before, it's like you set small goals. That's how you get through every single day.
Hence why the APA thing is a big hit, because that was a goal, and something comes in between your goal. It throws your focus.
That like you
were you able to, or are you able to refocus for some other goals, perhaps?
It was tough to do that, like, but it comes to a point, like it took me like maybe 2 weeks for me to just say like, okay, I understand that I'm injured, you know, like 2 weeks of beating myself up, 2 weeks of feeling like I don't want to do anything at all.
It's a lot harder, right?
Yeah, it's a lot harder for someone who is depressed compared to someone who is normal to cope with failure, I guess.
Right.
Yeah, like, or a setback.
When you said a lot harder, I was thinking about, you know, since you've gone through depression for so long, does it get any easier because you are able to understand the how do you say, your condition? You are able to do that, and also you are more adept to coping with it. Does it get any easier?
I wouldn't say it gets any easier, but on certain days you will feel like it is worse, like the worst of the worst, worse than what it was
but
before.
Do you find it a bit more manageable?
Yeah.
So that's what I think what happens, because when you have dealt with it, and I think she has come to a point where she knows how to identify the problem.
Yes.
And I guess she manages it a lot better than someone who doesn't know how to understand that feeling, what it is, or decipher what it actually means.
Right.
So I guess in that case, but it doesn't make the feeling any lesser.
Yeah. Okay, I understand.
Just that you deal with it a lot better.
Yeah, like you still feel the same the same depressed feeling, but the way you deal with it, it's like a different approach.
But do you feel like, say, if you go into this cocoon of depression or whatever it is, but you have things that will get you out of it, you know what will get you out of it, kind of thing?
I do have one person that will get me out of it, but as soon as that is out of the picture, then it will be all hell for me, because like usually I think different people have different ways of coping. So for my way of coping is I have that one person that I trust and tell everything to. So the moment when that person doesn't want to understand or try to be there for me as a support, then it feels like I've lost everything, because it's harder for me to try to find someone else and to talk to them about it and try to get them to understand me again.
And get a non-judgmental view and so on.
Yeah. I don't mean to trivialize the matter, right? Like when I was working in telecommunications, when you design a network, you have to have a redundant system. Right, so if one fails, the other one picks up. Maybe you should look into getting someone else who's able to.
The thing is, like what she's going through is it's trust.
It's
a big trust issue. Speaking out, even when she was speaking out to me, I don't think she told me 100%.
Right.
Okay, but that's because who am I?
Right.
You know, I've not won the trust yet. Right. I mean, you can tell me what you need to, and I will perceive it as what you're telling me. But like what she said, I probably can listen to her, but you'll never really understand the feeling.
Yeah, but that's because probably she keeps you at a slight distance than
Yes.
the
So-
person, the guy who's in her life, right?
It takes years
To
and
develop that
years.
kind of relationship.
That kind of trust.
That,
Yep,
that
okay.
trust,
Yep.
because trust can be such a fragile thing. You know,
Yes.
you can do
Yeah, I know.
100 things right.
Yep.
You know, but that one time you break that person's trust, and
Yeah.
it's over.
And that's the
That's
thing.
it.
And this thing, the person you're talking to is not devoid of feelings. They could
Yeah.
also
Yeah.
have things that are going on in their life.
Yes.
Yes.
You know?
They
So
get
it-
stressed out too.
Yeah. So you're pouring your emotional, and they start becoming the person who lifts your emotions
Right.
with them. Like
So,
you-
would it be better if that you had regular sessions with a psychiatrist, for example? Would that be an option for someone who is, on depression?
Psychiatrist to a certain extent, but you have to understand, going to see a psychiatrist, you're not going to see a psychiatrist who sees 4 patients a day. You're probably going to see a psychiatrist who sees a lot of patients a
Yeah.
day.
Okay.
So they probably have a limited amount of time for you to pour out your feelings, and if you don't trigger in that period of time.
Oh,
So
okay.
I mean, yes, in the best of situation, if everything was ideal, yes, you can sit down on the couch and explain yourself.
Right,
Okay, and pour out all your emotions that you see in the movies.
right.
Okay, but it does not happen in real life. To be frank, the medical system can't cope with 5 depressed people on a daily basis. Depression is so common that you have people flocking the clinic for it.
Really?
Yes, if you go and see a psychiatric clinic, there are a lot of people who are depressed. Obviously, they have different aspects of depression.
Right.
Yeah.
Okay, so that's when, for an athlete, support system comes in. You're a coach. You're probably going to see the athlete a lot more than anybody else. Okay, so you are probably the most important person. Okay, and obviously you have family members and friends, teammates who understand the situation.
Right.
Okay, who don't belittle you for what you are
Yep.
or what you're going through.
But okay, let me ask you something. Let's say you are surrounded by good coaches, friends, families, right? But do you resent that if they walk on eggshells around you?
Like, as in they try not to trigger me.
Yeah, so they're very careful with what they say and do around you.
As long as it's with honesty, I guess. Like, I wouldn't appreciate it if you were to hide something from me. Like, if you don't like the fact that I'm doing something, then tell me.
Right.
But like, if you were to constantly hide just so that you don't upset me or trigger my depression, and that is not real bond, that is not real support. Like, real support
Okay.
is when you go through everything together. Like, even though you guys are not like in good terms, but you are true friends, like you support each other, you know that they're going through hardships, you're going through hardships, but you're still there for them, and not just, I'm not telling you something for the sake of not upsetting you, because that's just pure lie. You're just lying to someone.
Can I say that you look for something meaningful in anyone, in a
Yeah.
relationship, regardless with your boyfriend or your
Yeah.
your parents, friends?
Yeah, like what Dr. Arvin said, you can't just go, because in a psychiatrist, like, the longest I was allowed was like 20-25 minutes. And yeah, yeah,
How much they charge you?
That's actually long.
like 200 over.
Really?
Yeah,
And they're expensive. Yeah.
that's actually long. When I was in orthopedics, I used to spend like 7 to 10 minutes a patient. I have 200 patients outside.
Yeah. So you can't
like,
have a
okay.
bond. You can't have a bond with a psychiatrist.
You don't create a bond with a psychiatrist. Rarely that happens.
Yeah.
Unless you've got all the money in the world, you hire one.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah, then you can do whatever you want.
So what's the way out, bro? I mean,
Huh?
what's the way out for someone who is depressed?
Long.
Huh?
Long. So the reality of the situation is, as much as, obviously you can meet the psychiatrist and so on. They're probably going to drug you if they feel that you are going beyond control. Okay, but most depressed people, all they need is someone to actually really talk to where they can actually, before it goes into depression, there are a lot of telltale signs, and when the person is that situation, all they need is someone to listen, someone to listen to them, and probably help them cope with the situation. And that's where friends and families play a very big role.
Right.
Even if you're an athlete, obviously the coach has probably 20 other athletes to deal with. They probably wouldn't have the time to deal with you alone.
Right.
And probably all you need is that attention. And it's a lot easier said than done.
Yeah.
You know, so in reality, when I was talking to my sports psychologist last time, ideally they should have a sports psychologist, someone who actually will help you get through it. You know, they will have methods of relaxation and so on, and through between training sessions, you know, they do like this water immersion and like pods and those kind of things.
I've been there.
Yeah. so it kind of brings your calms you down. Okay. Proper nutrition, proper sleep, all plays into the role. Not being overtrained.
Right.
You know, so don't push you beyond your limits at that point. Okay. A lot of things can be done to actually cope with what the athlete is feeling.
Right.
Now, the question is whether that this will repeat. Will it be a burden to the team?
Yes.
Yes. You know, that's a big question that sometimes they ask. You have to understand, some athletes actually get out of it once they get past that injury bit, and they start performing. They start seeing themselves doing well again, and the kind of stress you put on them is just nice. You know, it should not be distress. It should be eustress. Okay, eustress means stress cukup rasa.
What's it again? Eustress?
Yeah, eustress. EU.
EU.
Like everything, when you put U in front of a medical term, that means it's in balance. Like all of us are euthyroid. Our thyroid hormones are in balance.
Okay.
Hyper or hypo is up or low.
Okay.
Okay. So eustress is the right amount of stress. When you give the right amount of stress at the right amount of time, the person will have some difficulty, but they will cope.
Yeah.
Like overreaching and overtraining. You know, you give them a little bit of stress so that they're going to get better, but you don't give them so much of stress that they crumble.
You sort of agree.
Yes, actually, yes. What doctor said was really true, because on certain period of time, because we all grow, right? We all need to make progress in life to, you know, like achieve certain things, and the moment everything just starts, you know, everything is just on your shoulder all at once, like you weren't even prepared for it, and they expect you to do well with all of that stimulus and all that, you know. But if you just give me, like, let's say you have to do this assignment, it's hard, but you have to do it on your own, instead of giving me like all 10 of it to do it on my own. Yeah, it's much more manageable. And yes, I'm gonna have a hard time because I have to do it alone, but through that process, I'll still learn it. Like I still learn from, you know, how to cope with it, and then
Again,
slowly,
it's a step by step.
Yeah.
Small goals.
Yeah.
And then,
It's always the small goals that helps you cope with things. Like even previously I said, like, small goals that keeps me motivated, keeps me pushing forward every single day, because it's not just, you know, I can't just like say in 5 years I want to be this.
Right.
You know, it's too far. Yeah.
You have to put realistic goals.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And realistic approach to get there. Okay, so that's one of the biggest things, you know, besides helping them, talking to them and so on. Realistic goals.
Right.
And they will get there eventually, you know. And then you have to understand that, like everybody else, athletes have families. Wife, the athlete got a fought with his wife the night before,
Right.
and comes there and you did something, or the training went a bit wrong, and he throws a tantrum and so on. And what actually happened was he just fought with his wife yesterday.
Yeah.
And we are not void from the athletes are not void from that kind of stress. For a female, for instance, suddenly she will have a depressed mood, and what actually happened is she had a miscarriage. You know, probably they were trying for a baby and it did not happen.
Right.
You know, so it can be a lot of things. You know, there are even athletes who have complained that they are OCD feeling. Some athletes who are OCD. OCD means obsessive compulsive disorder. That itself can trigger depression. You know, they have to have things a particular way when they're doing things, and when things don't go their way, and then they beat themselves about that.
Right.
So that kind of thing. So those are the things. So you have to understand that, like I think I explained quite a few of factors that actually can cause depression. Okay, and obviously it starts off with sadness, then whirls down or snowballs to depression. Okay, so how do we cope with that? Was, as I said, getting friends, you know, eating well, sleeping well, proper stress when you're training, and so on. Expectation, manage your expectations. That's very, very important.
Expectations.
Yeah, manage expectations. Always you must manage. If you get injured, if you get injured, like a shoulder injury, I've popped my shoulder like twice. Okay, it didn't come off. I've torn ligaments and it's painful.
Right.
and it can take months. One of my periods was 2 years of training to get back to where I was.
Right.
You know, I was benching 140 and I tore my shoulder, and I never benched 140 for 2 years.
Let me ask you, Doc. That seems to be a serious injury, right?
Yes.
How come you didn't get depressed?
Okay, so that's the thing. But like for myself, the moment I had an injury, I knew what to do.
Okay.
I have an entire system. Okay, if I injured myself, I had enough resources to tell me, okay, when you get injured, you do A, B, C, D, E, and you get back to where you were. Okay, and obviously I didn't expect it to be that long. I didn't
Right.
expect it to be 2 years. You know, at one point I thought I was unbreakable.
Right.
You know,
All of us do. Like at one point of
So
time.
when that happened, it really showed me that I'm human.
Okay.
Okay, then you realize that you, like everybody else, go through pain. You, like everybody else, will have problems, and don't let it get the best of you. Okay, you have to manage the loads that you deal with, and progressively you will get better.
Right.
And you have to trust the process. Trust the process is easier said than done.
Yeah.
So can I say that for someone who is in that particular state, it helps to understand how to get out of it, right?
Yes.
Or how to cope with the problems that they are facing, right? I
Yep.
mean, the theme that I'm hearing here today is that you don't have any outlet. First of all, it's the expectation. There's a burden of expectation on your shoulders, right? And then you have no outlet for you to express yourself
Correct.
or to get help from someone.
Yeah.
Correct.
And number three, I would say that it's difficult for those around you to understand what you're going through, and sometimes they just be dismissive, and that just exacerbates the problem
Correct.
that you have.
Yeah,
Right?
dismissive. That is another big thing. If you actually
Yeah.
see what, have you heard of the Befrienders?
Yep.
No. What's
Yeah,
that?
Befrienders is actually
Oh, okay, I think so, yeah.
like a suicide hotline. Someone
Yeah,
you
yeah,
need to talk to. So one of the main things the Befrienders will talk about is don't belittle someone's feelings.
Right.
You know, someone who's depressed, it might seem trivial to another person, but to them that's a big deal.
Yeah.
You know, it could be the smallest things. My door didn't open on time, or
Yeah.
I tried to open the door, it was not opening, and they feel, I mean, like, wow, door, they're good.
Yeah.
But that could be their trigger.
Yeah.
So and if that person actually has depression, you know that it's going to be a trigger, and you belittling it is not helping the situation.
Right. Okay, I want to circle back because we're running out of time. I want to circle back to the issue, the case of I don't know how to pronounce his name.
Arvin.
Arvin Lim, right?
Arvin Lim.
Arvin
Yes.
Lim. Do you think this can be prevented? And if so, where are we now, and where should we be in order for us to prevent this from happening again to any of our athletes?
Maybe Heather, you can give your perspective first.
Support. Like, I feel like if he have the people, because he was back from Sarawak, right? Or Singapore. Singapore, yeah. So maybe when he was there, he didn't really have the support, or maybe when he come back, he didn't have the support that he got there, and he probably felt lost. And I can relate what his last moments were, and it's really important to be there for the person, for the depressed person. Like, it is really important for you to, even if you just spend like 5 to 10 minutes just talking to them, like, it is very important. Like, maybe to you 5 to 10 minutes is like so short, it's like nothing, but when you're speaking to them, when you're trying to help them, like open up to them or talk to them in general, ask them how are you, and if they actually like open up to you and tell you everything, then listen and support. Like, I can't stress enough like how much support means to us, because like you can be alone, like we're fine with being alone, but the moment where everything is just so horrible that you need that company, you need to know that you're not crazy, like you don't want to be crazy alone. Yeah, so it's I think if his support system was there, and he would probably still be alive right now, and if he have people who would be there for him during his last moments, I really, really think he would snap back to, yeah.
So yeah, like what Heather is saying is support is always important.
Right.
Because That's actually the forefront of any depressive case. The treatment is support. Medications and all behind lah.
Yeah.
The other things that you want to avoid is substance abuse. You know, a lot of people who go into depression go into substance abuse as well as a point of kind of bringing their emotions down. Alcohol, heroin, cocaine normally not. Okay, because cocaine kind of lifts you up, makes you hyper.
Okay, it's not antidepressant.
Okay, they want something that calms them down. So normally the
Weed.
opioids, weed, kind of calms them down. So they go into substance abuse. Alcohol is one of the biggest ones.
Okay.
Okay, so that can even trash your entire career after that because of that. Okay, other things you can do is going to things that are not your sports, doing yoga, watching a bird, playing with puppies, something. You know, get away from it and like recalibrate yourself. Sometimes all you need is a vacation.
Right.
Go for a vacation, go with the ones you love, recalibrate. You know, maybe find some time with yourself and spend some time with yourself with someone you love. If you're going with friends, go have a good laugh. That kind of thing. So those kind of things can help you cope with that, probably the momentary problems that you have.
Yeah.
You know, if you're having a phase or a point where the trigger came in and you have something to break away from that. So that will help you shorten the period of the trigger.
Right. Do you think because there are two sides, right? One is the person who's suffering from that depression, and the other one is the people around that person, right? For somebody who is like, because I've seen news where children are like taking UPSR, can't cope with all the pressure, and they actually commit suicide, right? Which is really, really sad. Now, do you think it's because we don't talk about it enough? The pressures about depression, and we as a society, we actually do not know how to deal with this. You know, the person who's experienced it doesn't know that they're suffering from depression, or they cannot see the symptoms, and the person who is around them would also not know what to do or what to
to a certain
look at.
extent, yes, but you have to understand that the population or the millennials per se, a lot of people say UPSR je apa hal pula, you know. But you have to understand that the peer pressure and the pressure that's developing on them, basically if you don't do well, you don't get to a good school next, and then your entire life kind of tumbles down. And the thing is, there is so much of competition these days.
Right.
You know, back in the days, I'm talking about 20 years ago when I sat for UPSR, if you didn't get 5 years, it's not the end of the world.
Yeah.
You know, but now if you don't get 5 years, chances are you're going to end up in a school that is not that great. Okay, and that's about it. And if you don't have enough money, your family is not rich, you don't really do well. So a lot of these kids, and social media doesn't help the situation either.
Yeah.
It doesn't.
Yeah, like the kid who committed suicide from a pole. You know,
Right.
so that kind of thing. So a lot of peer pressure comes in. So you can't, at any situation, you can't compare what happened 20 years ago and now.
Of course.
Things have changed.
Yep.
And you can't belittle the situation. Depression is depression, regardless of which era you're in.
Yeah.
You know, and it will kill if it's not managed.
Right.
And you're talking about even Michael Phelps wanted to kill himself.
Really?
I'm not joking. Michael Phelps, he actually spoke on CNN. Okay, in 2012, he actually had intentions to take his life because it was so much to cope with, so much of stress to cope with, and that goes back to say, even the guy who won so many Olympic medals is not immune.
More than Malaysia.
Yeah, he's not immune.
Yeah.
So you have to understand that this depression per se, no matter who you are, you're vulnerable to it.
Right.
Yeah, it'll get you if it wants to get you.
Right.
So it's how we manage it, you know.
Yeah.
So if you find yourself going to that spiral, you find yourself, and if your friends or whatever kind of see that you're not doing what, or you're kind of spiraling down a different way, get help as soon as you can. Talk to someone. You know, meet a doctor. You know, every doctor should be able to actually find out depression. Basically, when you speak even to a GP, the moment you say a certain amount of symptoms, it kind of
They
raises
know.
up flags.
Right.
Okay, we should all be able to diagnose it, no matter
Okay.
who we are as a
Alright.
doctor. But treating it is probably about psychiatrist.
Yeah, that's a different matter.
Yeah.
Right.
So you can always talk to someone, get some help.
Right.
Okay, you're not alone in this. A lot of people,
Yeah.
you know, Chester Bennington also had
Yeah.
depression. He
Right.
was smiling the day before he died.
Yeah. Robin Williams.
Yeah. So again, see, these
Yeah.
people were the people who were making everybody else happy.
Yeah.
But they weren't themselves.
Yep.
You know, so it's so easily missed.
Yeah.
You know,
And that's the thing, though. I guess I suppose what you're trying to say is that, even though we know what we should do, but it's not apparent sometimes. It's not easily detectable.
she's not gonna walk to you and say I'm depressed.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And you have to be really close to that person, right?
Yes.
To know that the nuances, the little ticks,
Yes.
changes that happens, to be able to
Yeah.
So
start.
those are
acting
the most important people. The people who are around you, who are with you most of the time,
Yeah.
they are the one who will see it.
Yeah.
If they don't, then you're on your own.
Yeah, so they would have to learn how to understand you. Like, it is not understand your depression, but you in general. Like, they have to understand that you can't cope with certain stresses as well as they can. You know, like, they can be under 100 pressure, or everything can fall onto them and they won't break, because that's just how they're built, and they're good at coping with that. But for you, they have to understand that you can't do that, and you need to take smaller steps, smaller goals. Like, if you have 10 problems, then solve one first, and then the next one. And understanding, support, you need that positive kind of people around.
I want to flip this around, just for a bit. Sorry, it's been dragging, but does your friend, right, your boyfriend again,
Yeah. What?
does he ever feel that it's overbearing?
I guess to a certain extent it does feel like, honestly, it's not easy to deal with or try to help me cope with my depression. Although there are instances where sometimes he will get annoyed because he doesn't know what to do.
Yeah.
You know?
Especially for
Like-
guys, right? I mean, guys, we like to fix things.
Yeah.
And if you can't fix things like that,
And the problem with depression is you can't really fix it 100%
can't.
out. Like, immediately you can't fix it that
Yeah.
way, you know. And it's long term. It's long term of rehab. Like, you know, it's like an injury. You need to do it step by step. You know, it's not just, I'll do this and you immediately feel better. It doesn't work like that. You know, like, although I do feel better now, but it's just this much.
Yeah.
And I still have that feeling at the back of my head. And sometimes I do notice that I don't tell him certain things because I know that he is stressed out.
Yeah.
I am stressed out as well. And sometimes, like, at this point, like, maybe back then I wouldn't understand that, you know, like, because back then I'm so overwhelmed, I don't know how to cope with my depression. I'll probably just straight up tell him. But right now, if I can cope with it, I'll cope with it myself. You know?
you seem to be able. You seem to be more aware
Yes.
of your
Like-
condition.
It's called insight.
Yeah, that's the thing about you.
I like the way you look at me.
Oh my god, yeah.
Yeah.
So I guess one way to help people with depression is to teach them how to be aware of your symptoms and then cope with it, like small steps. Because I guess the main points what I'm trying to say is support, understanding, and then coping and small steps. Like,
I know I'm dragging this a bit. You said that you just want somebody to listen,
yes,
right?
yes.
Is that it? Like, if I'm a really good listener, I can just say
No.
nothing and just listen. But is that sufficient, or do you require some, feedback?
I'll give you an instance where I have this lecturer. She noticed that I was really stressed out. Like, she can see that I was tearing up in class, but I didn't tell anyone. Like, no one knew, but she noticed. And she was this really very strict and very, scary lecturer. But when she spoke to me, she held my hand and she was the kindest and softest. Like, she's like a mom, okay?
Right.
And she told me that if you ever need someone to listen to, you can talk to me. And like, I told her what was wrong, because she told me that she have depression as well. She have anxiety
No
as
wonder.
well.
Okay.
She understands how
She
I feel.
understands.
She knows.
Mm.
She knows. She can tell. Those people around you, like those who have depression, will know. They can understand you much better than those who don't. Because,
Right.
like those who don't, they don't know what it's like to have depression, because like they can't even try to understand it because you're not in that situation. You know, like it. Yeah, so she pretty much spent a really long time, like 30 minutes, 40 minutes, just to talk to me, and she was really nice, and I felt much more relieved. Like she made me felt less stressed, and like I felt glad and happy that actually someone was there for me. You know, like I really needed that.
So it always goes back to the support system.
Yeah.
It's mostly a person, but it's good to have a system. Like AA groups.
Yeah.
You know, so people in depression also have groups.
Yeah.
Where they have a consultant who lets you vent out and then help you manage or teach you how to manage your feelings.
Or at least to understand that they're not alone, right?
I guess that's one of the biggest things. You're not alone in this.
Yeah.
You know, a lot of people face the same problem. So it's good to have a feeling that you are not dealing with this all by yourself. And I think in most depressed cases, or patients with depression or people with depression, that's what they feel. They're alone.
Yeah.
They are dealing with all of this by themselves.
Or at least they think that they're dealing
And
with
at least,
themselves.
at least,
Yeah.
and the thing is, most of the time when we try to help them, what we think has help is
It's not
probably
help.
not what they are
Yeah.
looking for. So that's another thing. So
So catch-22, right?
Okay, I think it's best for like someone who is better at coping with depression to help someone else who doesn't know how to cope with depression, because they understand what it's like to be them.
yeah.
Yeah, so it's easier for people who understand each other to support each other, and those who are outside can learn how
Yes,
to, you
yeah.
know, like support them in a way where, you know, emotional support, like, you know, like just the simple things like you can do this.
Right.
You know, I know it's not gonna be okay now, but
Yeah.
somewhere in the future, it will be. It could be 2 years, it could be 5 years, but it will be.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It takes time.
So
Your
like,
own cheerleader lah.
Like I
You
mean,
can do
the
it.
people around it, the people who
Yeah.
doesn't understand
Yeah.
depression. Yeah.
sometimes all you have to do is like, how are you doing?
Yeah.
You know, all you have to, that person, anybody who's a friend, you
Yeah.
just have to say, how are you doing? I hope
Yeah.
you're coping.
Yeah.
Or whatever it is. And that could actually switch a person who was about to attempt to, maybe it's not so bad.
Yeah.
Right. Okay, we just end with this, right? I mean, offline, you mentioned about temporary insanity.
Yeah.
Can you just
Okay, so yeah, everyone who goes through depression. Okay, see, there's a difference between intentions and attempt.
Okay.
Okay, and success of attempt. So it has been shown that females have more ideations, and if I'm not mistaken, they actually attempt more, but males have more success rate.
Sorry. Why?
Because they will go through with it. They will want to go. They don't get scared.
They just do it.
They just do it.
Oh.
So that point of temporary insanity that can happen. I've got a case where the guy just drove into a wall. All he had to, and it was split second. What, 5 seconds? And if nothing breaks it in that 5 seconds, you're going to just drive through into a wall.
Yeah.
So temporary insanity can happen at any point. And hopefully the person who's going through this depression doesn't have to go through it. I mean, you don't go to the state where you
Right.
reach temporary insanity, where it just that it's just a split second, and most of them is just a split second. You know, it's and that's the end.
I feel like for most cases of suicidal attempts, you have that all up in your head kind of feeling, like you feel like you just want to do it now, because I have that. And sorry, disclaimer a bit, but I did try to take, you know, a razor blade to just slit my wrist, and like I don't know, like I just stunned. I didn't know what to do. Like I just want to do it, but I didn't want to do it at the same time, you know, like I'm scared of the pain, I'm scared of what's gonna happen next, you know, like. But then that was this moment where I was just really, really into doing it. Like,
That's the intention you were talking about.
Yes, the attempt. She was about to attempt it.
Yeah.
Okay.
And
But I didn't go through with it.
but in most guys, when they're about to attempt,
Yeah.
They just
likely
do
they
it.
will.
Yeah, they just.
If they're gonna put a gun to their head, they're likely gonna pull the trigger.
Yeah.
So and that's the thing. Probably a bit off track, but that's how major depressive disorder is, and you know, managing it is it's very pivotal.
Mm-hmm.
It's very important, and it's a lot more common than you think it is. 25% is 1 in 4 people.
Yeah.
So let it be a child, let it be an adult, let it be a teenager. Adolescents are now 18, 25 years old is a very really, really important age. Anything can happen in that period of time. So as I told you, with athletes, some of them get picked up really early in life, and the stress of being a young athlete to a professional athlete is a lot. For a child who's 13 years old, a boy is 13 years old. He's just trying to get his childhood together, and he's already stuck in the major league.
Yep.
Or playing in Bukit or in Sekolah Sukan. So it's a lot to deal with. You don't have a normal childhood like everybody else. You don't get to make mistakes like everybody else.
Why do you think we don't have a sports psychiatrist then? If this thing is so prevalent, why do you think?
Awareness, the money, everything, finances. It always goes back to that. It's expensive.
Yeah.
It's expensive to have an entire. Frankly speaking, an entire team should have an SNC, an athletic trainer, a coach, a psychologist. That's a complete team. But do we have that in reality? No, we don't. Nice to say. It's more of a developed country.
Right.
Developed countries' expectations. Countries like China, they have it. Because that's a big deal. Because if they're going to perform at the best in the world, you have to have the best team behind them. Again, support system. The best team has to be behind them at all times to manage any downfalls to happen. So when you don't have that in an athlete, that can cause breakdowns.
But we have ISN, right? ISN does all that, right?
Not for every athlete. Not for everyone.
Not for every sport. So it's a very selective sport.
Yeah.
It's quite selective. So that's a whole other aspect. Yeah. So we have a big athletic group.
Yeah.
It's not just football or rugby or powerlifting. The range is big, and depression can happen to anybody.
Yeah.
It can be even the sailing team.
Yeah.
It can happen to anybody. So what I'm trying to say is, being athletes, you're not immune.
Right.
Okay, so we have to do what is necessary as a community, as fitness professionals, and myself as a healthcare worker. So all of us have our role to reduce or try to manage what's going on. If you know someone who has it, then refer them to the right channels. Then if possible, be their support system.
Right.
If you're a person close to them, and I think more than anything, that's all they sometimes want.
Right.
Someone to actually talk to.
Right. On that note, I think let's wrap up the discussion.
Yeah.
It's a long one.
It's a long one, but I think I hope that people who are out there who are listening and watching, they can benefit or learn something from this podcast.
Yeah, I hope.
And I think I like you guys to have maybe the last words if you want to say anything about the topic.
I guess if you do have suicidal intentions or you feel like you're depressed, seek help. If you have the money to go for a psychiatrist, go for it. And if you don't feel like antidepressants is like an option for you, then don't go for it. Like, do whatever is comfortable for you, whatever that makes you feel happy, go for it. Okay. Yeah, don't force yourself into something that you're not set out for. Don't force yourself to do something that just because people tell you to do it.
Right.
Yeah, the most important thing is your own well-being and not someone else's.
Right. Doc?
Then for myself is, if you're an athlete who's going through injuries, trust the process. Trust the process. Get good friends around you. Have a good support system, and manage expectations. As an athlete, you have to always manage expectations.
Right.
And if you do that well enough, chances are you won't spiral down. You will do well. You'll get out of it. Okay, you will get out of those injuries. So there are a lot of channels to get that done.
Yeah.
Okay, so always look at the brighter side of situations, and hopefully you will cope and don't spiral down to depression.
Yeah. Okay, guys. Thank you so much for being on this episode of the podcast. I really
Thank you for
appreciate
having
your
us.
time
Thank you for having me.
your sharing your experience, especially Heather. I'm sure it's not easy.
So I told you it'd be good to have her.
Yeah, thank God. And guys, if you like the show, leave a comment. If you don't like the show, tell us why you don't like it. I don't understand why you won't like it, but just tell us. Don't forget to subscribe to our YouTube channel, and also do listen to us on Spotify. With that, we'll see you in the next episode. Ciao.
All right, ciao.